This is replacement theory in a nutshell. It is dangerous and a deeply anti-American worldview. It is poisoning minds.
So we hit a major milestone this week, and by we, I mean everyone in the whole world. Congratulations. The global population officially crossed the 8 billion mark. So there are now 8 billion people on the planet. It took humanity until the 1800s to hit 1 billion, but only 200 more years to multiply that number by 8. This, of course, has led to, as you might expect, lots of frantic and feeble hand-wringing about the mythical threat of overpopulation, quote unquote. There are too many people on the planet, they cry. The whole planet is about to tip over on its axis and we'll all slide off like dishes on an overturned table. Infamously, there was once an elected Democrat who expressed a concern not far from that. Slightly less delusional, though still plenty delusional, is the fear that we will run out of resources or habitable land for people to live on. I mean, none of these scenarios are realistic. There is more than enough land, more than enough resources to feed and house numbers even greater than 8 billion. If the land or resources are misallocated or not properly utilized, or if people choose to huddle together in massive, smelly urban bundles, that's a different problem entirely that cannot be blamed on sheer numbers and also cannot be solved by reducing the numbers. In fact, it's not just that overpopulation is a myth, one invented and propagated by nihilists and eugenicists and Bill Gates, but I repeat myself. It's that the actual crisis we face as a globe, as a world, as a planet, the real apocalyptic cataclysm on the horizon is quite the opposite of overpopulation. Our problem is not that there are too many babies being born, but that there are too few being born. The world's population is getting older. The average age of a human on Earth is a decade older now than it was in even the 1970s. Now, sure, that's partly a product of modern medicine, which is good. People are living longer. But it's also a product of an aging population that isn't having enough babies. And when the median age gets high enough, society becomes top-heavy with more elderly people than there are younger people to care for them. This is a problem that developed countries like Japan are already dealing with. Many others will soon join them. The whole world is trending in that direction. For all the talk about overpopulation, the population is actually projected to start declining by the 2060s as global fertility rates dip below replacement level. Understand this, global populations have never declined due to declining fertility. Okay, we've never seen a decline in the global population because of fertility or lack thereof. The last decline was during the Black Plague 700 years ago, and that was because of a pandemic that wiped out a quarter of human life on the planet. A decline due to people simply not having babies is an entirely different matter, and it's never happened before through the whole history of the human race. And it's not a good sign. Older, slower, top-heavy populations cannot thrive, and after a while, they cannot survive. They can't sustain themselves. Human civilization is right now essentially giving up on itself, throwing in the towel. And this, again, is not a positive development. In the U.S., we're ahead of the population decline curve. We fell below replacement level fertility a couple of years ago, and actually farther ago than that. And we've been notching record low birth rates every year since, or almost. I mean, birth rates hit another record low in 2020, falling 4% below the previous year. However, in 2021, there was a slight uptick of 1%, which is still 3% below 2019. It was the first increase in the birth rate since 2014, but that was likely only a function of the fact that the year before that was so low. Overall, the U.S. has been below replacement level, actually, for the most part, and there have been, there are peaks and valleys and everything, but for the most part, it's been below replacement since really the early 1970s. And even with the occasional blip on the radar screen, a spike here and there, we are trending in the wrong direction, and fast. Senator Chuck Schumer, of all people, has noticed this problem, and he made note of it yesterday to reporters when he was giving a press conference. Given that Democrats despise the human species, and especially those members of the species who are residents of their same country, those are the humans that Democrats hate the most, we don't usually hear them lamenting declining birth rates. In fact, they are engineering the decline. So what has awakened Schumer to this issue? Why does he care about it all of a sudden? Well, that becomes obvious pretty quickly when you hear what he had to say and why. Here it is.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
So there you go. That explains it. The American population is declining. We are short of workers. The senator is concerned, of course, that there won't be enough people available to mow his lawn and clean his pool and dust his fireplace mantles. And his solution is to import a peasant class, to import them rather than attempt to raise them organically the old-fashioned way. He seeks to replace the American population with illegal immigrants. He wants to replace them, replace us. He wants to replace them on a very large scale. Replace them on a large scale. Even you might say, a large, another synonym would be great. He wants to replace the declining American population on a great scale. Replace on a great scale. So it's like a great replacement, you might say. That thing that we're not allowed to notice or mention, that's the thing that Chuck Schumer is explicitly advocating for. And by the way, not for nothing, I should also say 11 million. We keep hearing 11 million. There are 11 million illegals or undocumented immigrants, as they put it. They've been telling us about the 11 million undocumented immigrants since I was in high school, okay? That number now is much higher than 11 million. We don't know exactly what it is, but probably closer to 50 million or higher. In any case, there are, of course, other ways to reverse the trend of population decline. And the most simple strategy, and frankly the most enjoyable, is for us American citizens to get down to business and have babies, lots of babies. I'm not to brag, but I am already pulling more than my fair share of the weight in this arena now that I have 6 kids, and my wife and I have, in our family at least, tripled the replacement rate. And if you really want to encourage more people to have babies, and if you want those babies to have the greatest chance of success in life, that entails more people getting married and getting married younger. So we could create a society that encourages marriage and incentivizes people to start families and to have children. But that is not what we have done. Thanks to Chuck Schumer and his ilk, we've gone exactly the opposite direction. To start with, we kill our babies in the womb. 60 million babies have been killed in the past 50 years or so. That means we've erased not just 60 million human beings. I mean, we've erased 60 million to begin with, but actually we've erased hundreds of millions of potential humans. There's a large portion of those babies, after all, would have grown up and had kids of their own, and soon the kids of those kids would start having kids. Entire family trees have been uprooted and tossed into the incinerator. The loss of human potential is absolutely staggering. And yet Schumer and his party support, fund, and facilitate all of this, even as he laments or pretends to lament the declining populations. Not only that, but Schumer and his party have attacked the nuclear family. They've encouraged sexual perversion and sexual dysfunction. They have invented a human right to subsidized birth control. I mean, they want to give out birth control in middle schools now. They've created an economy that forces millions of women out of the home and into the workplace. Now they're even castrating and sterilizing people, including children, in the name of gender ideology. This is all part of a deliberate plan. There's no escaping that conclusion. And that's to say nothing of the drug epidemic killing millions of Americans killing Americans by the thousands every single year. Violent crime, which is doing exactly the same. They are obviously aware that their policies are wreaking havoc on the birth rate while eliminating en masse those who have managed to be born. They're aware that this creates a crisis situation for the country. And here they are at the ready with the solution, which is to import Democrat voters from the third world. Send in the replacements. I mean, they're right. The great replacement theory is outrageous. It's outrageous to talk about the great replacement theory. And that's because there is no theory here. It's just a fact right in front of our faces. More than 90% of Americans don't get enough fruits, vegetables, and fiber in their diet. We're all basically walking nutritional disasters. That's where Balance of Nature supplements comes in. These aren't your typical synthetic vitamins with names you can't pronounce. We're talking about 47 whole ingredients, 16 fruits, 15 vegetables, plus spices and fibers. Real stuff like wild blueberries, kale, turmeric, and mushrooms as well. I've taken the fruits and veggie supplements for a while now, and honestly, it's nice knowing I'm getting all that variety without having to turn my kitchen into a produce section. Especially handy to have while traveling as well. Plus, their fiber and spice blend is the only supplement on the market combining 12 spices with 4 whole fibers. Look, I'm not saying this replaces eating actual vegetables, but when life gets crazy and your diet consists mainly of whatever doesn't require cooking, it's nice knowing that you'll still get healthy ingredients with balance of nature. They're vegan, kosher, gluten-free, and made with zero artificial anything. Just nature doing what nature does best. Go to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code Walsh for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Walsh. Speaking of Buffalo, I want you to listen to what this reporter says when asking Karen Jean-Pierre about the so-called great replacement theory. Just listen to the words that are used here. Very, very telling. Listen.
There's polling that shows 1 in 3 Americans believe in some element of replacement theory. You just spoke in very broad brushstrokes there. Are there specifics that this White House is willing to do, willing to take in order to stop this form of thinking from further seeping out of the fringe and into the mainstream?
So, we're going to continue to call this out. As we have talked about many times, the president at every chance he's had when we've seen a violent attack like this that is as we say with hatred and racially motivated, he calls it out and calls it what it is.
What are we going to do to stop this form of thinking? They're not even trying to hide it. How are we going to stop? There's somebody in the press asking this, by the way. How are we going to stop people from thinking like this? And thinking like what exactly? I mean, what is the form of thinking? Well, it's this. It's the so-called great replacement theory. And one of the clips I want to play for you on this, and then I have a couple. Actually, I have some examples, in fact, of the great replacement theory that I want to present to you. But first, here's Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate yesterday, also railing. And there are so many examples we could pull from because this has been the current thing for the Democrats over the last couple of days is the great replacement theory, which they're accusing Republicans of engaging in. And so here's just one example: Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate railing about it. Listen.
This is replacement theory in a nutshell. It is dangerous and a deeply anti-American worldview. It is poisoning minds, people's minds, who spend hours wandering the darkest wastelands of the internet. And let's be clear, it's a message that has also found a special home in several right-wing outlets, and on one cable news channel in particular, Fox News. In a craven quest for viewers and ratings, organizations like Fox News have spent years perfecting the craft of stoking cultural grievance and political resentment.
Stoking grievance and resentment is, of course, all these people do. That is their entire MO. That's their entire political strategy. They have nothing else to offer. They don't do anything but that. It's just stoke, especially racial grievance and resentment, while he accuses everybody else of doing that. Now, what is the theory here? Well, as I pointed out yesterday, this actually is a theory from the Democrats, and their theory is that whiteness, generally speaking, is something that can be and should be mitigated. It's a disease. That's the theory on the left, is that whiteness is a disease that needs to be cured. And I mean that in a very literal sense. So I'll just give you one example here. A guy by the name of Donald Moss wrote a paper, this was just last year, wrote a paper for the Journal of the American Psychoanalytic Association. And we could put this up there for you. This is just the abstract of this paper. This is what he writes. And this, by the way, is totally in keeping with CRT. I mean, this is basically CRT with a little bit of psychobabble, a little bit of extra psychobabble added in. So this is what Donald Moss says. Whiteness is a condition One first acquires, and then one has a malignant parasitic-like condition to which white people have a particular susceptibility. The condition is foundational, generating characteristic ways of being in one's body, in one's mind, and in one's world. Parasitic whiteness renders its host's appetites voracious, insatiable, and perverse. These deformed appetites particularly target non-white peoples. Once established, these appetites are nearly impossible to eliminate. Effective treatment consists of a combination of psychic and social historical interventions. Such interventions can reasonably aim only to reshape whiteness's infiltrated appetites, to reduce their intensity, redistribute their aims, and occasionally turn those aims toward the work of reparation. And then we go forward a little bit, and it says, there is not yet a permanent cure. So this is again, totally consistent. This is not just some fringe concept, totally consistent with CRT. This way of thinking there's a reason why it was published in the Psychoanalytic Journal. It's all over the psychology and psychiatry industry. And he is quite literally saying that whiteness is a parasitic condition for which it is necessary that we find a permanent cure. You find this in the media too. This is Jennifer Rubin at the Washington Post. Somewhat infamous tweet from last year. And she was responding to census data, which showed at the time, and as we've seen this in successive census reports, the number of white people falls for the first time. So she's responding to a headline which says, census data shows widening diversity, number of white people falls for the first time. Jennifer Rubin's response, a more diverse, more inclusive society. This is fabulous news. Now we need to prevent minority white rule. So, she is responding specifically to a headline that says the number of white people falls for the first time. She says, fabulous news. Now, if for some reason it's not immediately obvious why that's a horrific thing to say, all you have to imagine is if the headline had said, number of black people falls, and then someone had responded and said, fabulous news. So, if anyone in media responded that way to the hypothetical headline saying that the number of black people falls, that person would be done forever. Like their career is over, it's destroyed. There would be 100% agreement among everyone everywhere that is very racist. And it would be, of course. Like if you're cheering for the population of a certain race to dwindle, that's racist. Like I can't think of a more racist thing than that. And this is what you get on the left. Another example, this is from Hollywood producer Morgan J. Freeman. We have a couple of tweets from him, not to be confused with, not that Morgan Freeman, not the famous one, the different one. He says, and this is just today, or yesterday he tweeted this, being anti-racist starts by admitting whiteness is a disease. Whiteness is a dominant cultural space with enormous political significance with the purpose to keep others on the margin. So it's a disease, whiteness is a disease, we got to get rid of it, so on and so forth. Now, so this is the game they play. First of all, again, the theory that whiteness is a disease, a problem, and we have to minimize it, mitigate it, replace it, that is the theory on the left. And if you notice it, if you simply notice what they're saying, and then you point to it and say, hey, did you hear what that person just said? Then all of a sudden, you're the conspiracy theorist. This is the game they play. To great effect, in fact. They just scare people into silence. And they create this environment where they can, of course, say whatever they want. But then they also get to decide, they could just say what they want. And but if in certain circumstances, they might not want you to quote them. They might not want you to notice what they're doing, even when they're explicit about it. And so they get to decide.